Alright guys, so the topic for today, it was actually a question that one of you asked me. Since I recently got the Interceptor, I mean relatively recently, did I consider the KTM 390 Adventure as well? And for the past couple of weeks, I've actually been thinking a lot about the 390 Adventure, if I should even consider switching over to that and so on. So yeah, your question, Joel, your question was at a very good time for me to answer this. Although keep it in mind that I'm no expert. I'm just like all of you guys, just an average biker. So yeah, I mean, my advice, my opinion, it's, just take it as a fellow biker's advice, not an expert's. So when I got the Interceptor sometime in December last year, I did consider the 390 Adventure, but it wasn't quite available at that time. Now what I mean is, yes, it was announced and almost all of us knew what it would be like. We knew the specs and all that, but nobody really knew when we could actually get one. So they had unveiled it at the India Bike Week, but they didn't announce when the bookings would start and when it would actually be available. So yeah, that was, I called up the dealer. They couldn't tell me anything. So if it was available back then, and if I could actually get my hands on one, even with say maybe a month's wait or whatever, things might have been different. But in that situation, when I didn't really know when I could get my hands on one, I went with this one because I was getting quite desperate to get a bike back then, because it had been a few months since I had sold my Sportster, and yeah, I had the Vespa, but I was missing a real bike. So now, if I was to get a bike now, and if I had a choice between the Interceptor and the 390 Adventure, what would I do? Now, the answer varies from person to person because your needs are different, right? And it really depends a lot on what you're looking for in the bike. So in my case, I was looking for a pretty good all-rounder. So something I could use for short highway rides like these, solo, or with a passenger, comfortably, or the occasional long tours, say a full day's ride of 400 or 500 kilometers or even more, with a passenger and with luggage, and of course the daily city rides, commutes and all that. So I wanted a bike that could do all of that reasonably well. And back then the Interceptor looked like it could do most of it. Maybe not all of it very well, but yeah, with some modifications, some changes, I figured at that time that it could do most of it. So yeah, is it a good city bike? Yeah, it is a good city bike. It's nimble enough, not as nimble as say a sport bike or a smaller, say a KTM Duke, but it is good enough. Especially for someone moving from a Harley Sportster, it is quite nimble, quite light. And the biggest gripe I had with the Sportster was the overheating in city traffic. This doesn't have that problem, even though it's air cooled. and aided by oil cooling. I haven't had any real overheating issues. Yeah, there was one time it got a little hot when I was riding double with my wife, and the traffic was quite bad. I mean, I did not feel any real heat, but towards the later part of the ride, the engine felt a little sluggish, like it was maybe retarding the timing to prevent further heating. Okay, so that's the city part. Highways, when you're riding solo, it's quite good, except the seats are not that comfortable. So if you're looking for long rides, you would need to do something about the seat. Now there are options from Royal Enfield themselves, the touring seats for the Interceptor and the GT. Some say the GT seat is more comfortable than the Interceptor. So yeah, you could go with the touring version of the GT seat, or you could go with third-party seats. How good they are for long rides, I can't tell, because most people seem to say that the touring seats are just marginally better than the stock seat. So you may not be getting a huge difference just from switching to the touring seats. So I haven't changed my seats yet, because anyway with the COVID situation I'm not really doing very long rides, you know. So yeah, it is good enough for solo touring. But here's the thing I noticed after I got the bike: for two-up touring with luggage, at least for me, it just can't do it. It's no good at all. For one, your passenger won't really be comfortable. The seating posture, you know, for me, I mean, the seat is kind of high. So have you heard of that word or that phrase, in the bike or on the bike? So some bikes make you feel like you're sitting in the bike because the seat is relatively low compared to the tank and the handlebars. Say most touring bikes, a lot of Harleys, you know, you have that thing, low seat, high handlebars, relatively high tank. So you get the feeling of sitting in the bike, and you're less affected by the acceleration and braking forces because you're kind of cocooned in the seat. This is a flat seat and a kind of relatively high mounted seat, so you don't get that effect. And then when you have a passenger behind you, all of that kind of gets magnified, you know. And the passenger also, at least from what I've heard from my wife, she had ridden extensively with me on the Harley. On this one, she also gets that, she gets jostled around quite a bit, you know, from the acceleration and braking forces. So that's that. And then comes the luggage. Now I have the tail with the top box mounted because I intended to get a luggage setup. So with the top box and some panniers or soft luggage, side bags, you know. But with the riding comfort, and that's gonna get worse when you put side bags or panniers on, right? Because the placement of the pillion's legs that changes a bit. Actually, with the stock foot peg positions for the passenger, you can't really mount luggage because they're set too far to the rear, so you have to relocate them to the front, and that should make it a little more comfortable for the passenger. But yeah, a lot of changes that need to be done just to make it possible to do two-up touring on this bike. And even then, there's a pretty good chance that you know, it won't be good enough. So I'm kind of putting off doing those upgrades. So yeah, that's one of the big shortcomings of this bike, for me at least. Now if you think about the Adventure, the 390 Adventure, it is much better equipped for touring. It definitely has better seats, and although it's not going to be as good as say R1200 GS or even an F850 800 GS, or one of those 800 to 1200 cc Beamers or Triumphs or what have you. It's not going to be anywhere near those, or for that matter probably even the 790 Adventure from KTM. But for the most part it is pretty good. Definitely better than this one, quite a bit better for touring comfort. And you have better luggage options as well from several of the leading luggage aftermarket luggage manufacturers like Hepco and Becker, GV and so on. So for touring, be it solo touring or two-up touring, it is better. For city rides and so on, I can't say one is better than the other. Both are pretty good. So what about the other things? Well, with the 390 definitely you get a lot better equipment level. So you get a lot of electronic gadgetry, the TFT display, which also provides you a lot of other information, pretty comprehensive trip computers and so on, Bluetooth connectivity to your phone. And you also get a host of rider aids, traction control, cornering ABS. But by the way, if you think you need a traction control on a 400cc single-cylinder motorcycle, think again. And if you still think you need it, I would say that bike is too big for you. You need to start on something smaller. Because guys, on a 400cc single-cylinder, I've ridden the 390, not the Adventure, I've ridden the Duke. It is powerful, but it is nowhere near as powerful as to cause unexpected wheel spin. It's just not going to happen. And even if it does, it's not going to be something that will that can potentially get you into trouble. Most of the time when you do have a wheel spin on that kind of a motorcycle, it would be intentional or so mild that you can very easily recover from it. And if your skills are not up to that level, or if your comfort level is not quite there, I would say maybe get something smaller until you're more comfortable. So for a lot of people, the traction control on the 390 Adventure is actually a hindrance, because you do want to get some wheel spin sometimes. I mean, none of these bikes, even this one, isn't powerful enough to do it on tarmac. You can only do it when it's wet, maybe you have to, if you have some water and oil on the surface, or on sand and dirt. Yeah, there you can do it, but it does take some effort. You're not going to be doing a wheel spin accidentally. So there was only one time I did that on this bike, like an unintentional loss of traction. I was in a bit of a hurry, squeezing through a small gap where there was some sand, and even then I kind of anticipated it, and as soon as it happened, it was nothing dramatic, just a slight fishtail, and yeah, I was quite I didn't even have to recover from it because I was kind of enjoying it, So that's how it is. And if you have traction control, even if you want to do that on a sandy patch, it won't let you do it. And every time you go off-road and you want to turn off the traction control, you have to turn it off manually. And every time you switch the ignition off and on, again you have to turn it off manually. So it's more of an hindrance for most riders. But the other things, the ABS, I think it's a pretty good ABS on the KTM, and it even has cornering ABS. I mean, you know, it'll compensate for the cornering forces when you're cornering and braking hard. So ABS is an important safety feature that I always recommend. You know, it's something that can actually save you. Unlike traction control also can be important on a really powerful bike. On a 400, no, not really. Yeah, if it was a 400 Super Sport, maybe, you know, like one of those CBR 400s from way back when. Yeah, on that kind of engine, you may have the power and torque to get you into trouble from an unexpected wheel spin. On a single cylinder 400, no, not gonna happen. Yeah, maybe if you're riding on ice, even then you should be able to control it with just the throttle. So yeah, on this bike you don't have any rider aids apart from ABS, just basic ABS. So pretty good. I will prefer not to have traction control on a bike this size, so I'm happy to not have it. Cornering ABS, yeah, that would probably help. It's good to have. But yeah, I'm kind of okay with the just basic ABS as well. So what else can we talk about? Performance. Again, I think the performance is about the same. I think the Adventure, the 390, would feel a little more peppy. Oh, these butterflies. Yeah, so it would feel a little more peppy. At least the 390 Duke that I rode, that was very, like, you know, let's say the 390 engine, it kind of has an explosive nature, you know. So when you rev it up, say from the mid-range onwards, the performance is kind of explosive. It really wants to go. But on the lower RPMs, it's not that good, which is to be expected from you know, a short stroke single cylinder. So the lower torque it's not bad. It's not, let's say it's not terrible. It's just okay. It's not great either. It's not, let's say on this bike, on the Interceptor, you have much better low-end torque. I come from a Harley, so nothing is going to be as good as a Harley for low-end torque. That was like a, you know, kick in the butt, even from idle. So you're not going to have that. But the Interceptor is still quite good, especially once you have a Powertronic and a free flow intake and exhaust. The low end improves quite a bit, you know, so you can actually put it around at 2000 RPM and you wouldn't even notice any struggle from the engine. Whereas on the 390, even on the Duke, which is slightly lighter than the Adventure, say if you're at less than 4000 RPMs, it can get a little you know, it won't struggle, but it won't be very comfortable either. So that's there. And the other thing I think may be an issue on the 390, that bike, at least the Duke or even the Adventure, it performs so well because of the light weight. Now the engine's power and torque figures are actually lower than the Interceptors, so the only reason it performs better is because of the light weight. Now if you put on a pillion and luggage, of course the weight is going to increase significantly. And how would that perform then? That's something you need to think about, you know. But I think it will still be okay. It won't be too bad. But if you are looking for off-roading, you know, if you're getting either of these bikes with some intention of getting off-road, I would think the KTM would be better because it's an adventure bike, but then again it's not it's kind of built to a budget, right? And it's not as off-road friendly as some of the bigger ones, say the 790 Adventure even, because it has alloy wheels. You could probably switch those to spoke wheels, or depending on the nature of off-roading you're planning on doing, you may just be fine with the alloys. And then the lack of low-end torque from the engine, that's another factor, because when you're off-roading you really need that low-end torque. It's kind of difficult to go off-roading when you have to keep the RPMs high, right? So those are a few shortcomings of the 390 Adventure with regards to off-roading. And it's, I mean, everybody says this, and I think even KTM acknowledged this. The Adventure is more of a touring motorcycle. Let's say a touring motorcycle that can take some bad roads and occasional off-roads even, but it's not something which is focused on off-roading. You know, it's not something that you would deliberately take it off-road to have fun. It's something that you say, let's say you could go touring on anywhere without planning, without looking at the road conditions, and even if you encounter some bad roads, you'd be fine. So that's the primary intention of having the 390 Adventure. Now when it comes to the Interceptor, it is not at all positioned as an off-road bike, but I'd say the way it's designed and because of some of the components it has, it can do a fair bit of off-roading. In the suspension, it's not long travel, but it is quite decent. It has a bash plate. It has pretty good ground clearance. It has the same amount of ground clearance as versus the 650, you know, which is also kind of a soft roader, you know, bad roader, I would call it, not an off-roader really. So it kind of has some of those features. It has a torquey motor at the low end. What's it doing though? So I would say it has good capabilities, close to that of the 390 Adventure. Maybe not quite the same, but close. And then these bikes can be further modified into scramblers. I mean, if you look at the British scramblers, the modern Triumph scramblers, or the historical, the vintage ones, which were mostly just modified road bikes, I mean, they could do it. You probably just need to get some taller suspension and tires. Yeah, the tires on this thing They're not at all suitable for off-roading. I mean, you can do it, but they are 100% road bias tires, and you won't get any good grip on slippery surfaces. Even in the on wet roads, these tires are not that great. But on the dry tarmac, they're pretty good. They're almost like slicks, So with all that in mind, for the past few weeks, I've been kind of thinking of, switching over to a 390 Adventure. Now, why is that? See, for me, one thing that I really cannot do on this bike that I talked about just a while ago is the two-up touring. Just cannot do this. Just cannot do it on this bike. Did I hit that? Yeah, so I just can't go two-up touring on this bike. Like I said, I could try doing it with a fair bit of modifications, but then I don't know if it would still work, and then I might just be wasting all that money for those modifications. So that's that. And I also do like gadgetry. So yeah, that's one thing that does attract me. Not the traction control, mind you. Yeah, not the traction control. But the instrumentation, yeah, cornering ABS and all that stuff. The LED headlights. Although you can put on a pretty decent LED headlight on this one as well. And a little better off-road ability. I kind of am considering getting myself some off-road training and doing a bit of off-road trail riding and so on, because that's something I'm not really experienced on. In India, everybody willingly or otherwise ends up doing some off-roading, but yeah, if you're talking about learning the actual skills required for doing it properly and owning them, that's not something I've worked on yet. Got to fuel up, and before that I need to get this balaclava to act as a mask to cover my face. I was so engrossed in talking to you guys, I reached here sooner than I expected, even though I wasn't going very fast. So yeah guys, that's my take on how these two bikes compare. Did I miss something? Hang on, I'm gonna blow it. Yeah, that wasn't much. Yeah, so did I miss something? Let's see. I talked about the touring aspect. That's a major difference. Luggage carrying capacity. The performance is about the same. The 390 may be a little better, but it misses out on the low end, and I'm not sure how it'll cope. Oh shit! I'm not sure how it'll cope with higher payloads. Let's say, what if you really want something for the off-roading? Let's say you really want to go off-road, do some serious off-roading, uh, and yet you just want one bike that can do everything else that you needed to do as well. In that case, I think go with the Adventure, the 390, because it is just ever so slightly better, because even though it's not a hardcore off-roader, it is still made on an adventure frame, you know. And maybe in the future, if KTM releases you know, the spoked rims, they were supposed to release them, I don't know if they've released them elsewhere but not in India yet. I don't know, but that should be a possibility down the line if you really need it, you know. It's a convenience versus capability thing, you know. Alloys with tubeless tires are much more convenient if you have punctures and so on, but if you risk damaging the rims, then that's much worse, of course. So you're better off with spoked rims then. So what else? One thing I didn't talk about, after sales service or even pre-sale service for Royal Enfield. It's worse than bad. It's terrible. I mean, I have talked about it on another video. Go watch that, maybe if you are interested. But if you're in India, you probably know this already. It's terrible. In other countries, it's probably not a problem, but in India, Royal Enfield sucks when it comes to after sales service or even pre-sale service. You pretty much have to go. It's like, you know, going out to a supermarket and buying a bike. That's the kind of treatment you'll get. Go there to the showroom, pick a bike, and pay for it. That's it. And nobody's going to help you choose one. Nobody's going to come to you. It's that bad. And after sales service, I have not tried it out myself. Not really. Again, I'm not going to go into the details here. I do most of my maintenance myself, and if it's something that I cannot do, I haven't. Whoa, it's a railway coach. What's it doing here? So yeah, I do most of my maintenance myself, and if it's something that I cannot do, I would take it to, maybe I would take it to a dealer or get it done elsewhere. Only problem is getting the parts. Even from a dealer, it's very difficult to get the parts if you intend to do the work yourself. You know, even for a regular oil change, if I had to get a oil filter, they don't sell it, you know, unless you get the oil change done at their place. So that way I think the KTMs are quite a bit better. One good thing, of course, about the Interceptor or the Royal Enfields is everything is very simple, and you can do a lot of the maintenance work yourself if you are inclined to do it. On a KTM, it's a bit more complex. You can still do it, but you know, there are fairings to remove, and things are not that easy to get to, you know. So there you go, guys. That was the reason. Yeah, I thought the Interceptor would be an all-rounder for me. It could do everything, but yeah, there are some things it cannot do, like two-up touring. If you're doing solo touring, by the way, I think the Interceptor can do it just fine. You have plenty of space at the back to mount some sort of luggage for solo. You can use the back seat to put a tail bag on it, and yeah, that's good enough, I think. Only thing, yeah, the seat comfort. So once you get a aftermarket seat that's good for you, you might have to do a fair bit of experimentation there. You know, maybe play around with one of those air seats. I am thinking of getting one myself, and you know, because I'm not sure which aftermarket seat to get. I was thinking of the Royal Enfield touring ones, but looks like they're not that much better, so I'm thinking maybe I'll just get an air seat, put it on the stock seat and try it out. But that's of course once we're able to do long distance touring, not right now. So that's my take on it, guys. Joel, I hope it helps. You wanted my opinion, and that's what I have, you know. If the 390 Adventure was available back when I got this, I think I would have gone for that. Yeah, I think so. And now, will I make the switch? As of now, I think probably not. Because it's a lot of money involved, you know. When you sell this, you're not gonna... Oh, that hit quite hard. Yeah, so when you sell this, you're not gonna get anywhere near the same amount of money that you paid for it. And the 390 Adventure is slightly more expensive than this, so you would have to spend quite a bit. But it wouldn't really be much of an upgrade, you know. By the way, guys, a worthwhile mention, when it comes to touring comfort and so on, the Benelli TRK was, wow, that's another one that hit pretty hard. Yeah, so the Benelli TRK, that was pretty good, very comfortable, very good luggage and passenger carrying capacity. I mean, your passenger also would be very comfortable. You could carry a decent amount of luggage, better than decent. And it had pretty good off-road capability as well. Only thing is, the engine was just about okay when you're riding solo. When you have a passenger and luggage, I'm not sure how it would deal with that additional weight, because it's a 500cc engine, not that powerful, and it's a heavy bike. But it has a lot of low-end torque, because it's a 360-degree parallel twin, so kind of acts similar to a BMW Boxer, as in there is a cylinder firing on every revolution, kind of like a two-stroke. So you get a lot of low-down torque, which is good for off-roading, which is good to make you feel like the engine is powerful enough when you're accelerating. And it can do some decent speeds as well, but it does feel a little strained at really high speeds. There you go, guys. I think the video is already quite long, and most people get bored way before this. So yeah, I think I'll end it here. Do look out in the description below, just in case I forgot something. I might add it down there. And if you have any specific questions, definitely put them in the comments. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. And that's all I have. It's really good to be out riding. I'm not doing enough riding these days, you know. There's just this one road that I can ride on conveniently, because it's close to where I live in Bangalore. But this doesn't go very far before it reaches the Andhra Pradesh state border, so yeah, I can't really go far. But hey, I should have taken one of the back roads while going back. That would have been fun. Why didn't I do that? Okay, next time. Well, guys, ride safe, have fun, be safe overall with all the things that's going on nowadays. Yeah, take care, guys. Bye bye.